Hello. Question for you. Did you grow up in a chaotic household and are you still dealing with the effects of that so many years later? Personally, I watched the Nanny shows back in the mid to late 2000s, shows such as Supernanny and 9911, and pretty much every episode they address chaotic families. Again, this is reality TV, which there's probably some acting, some pre-race going on, but actually, I think that these might have been a little bit more less rehearsed than some other parts of reality TV are. But what the families happened, what we saw then, usually there were two earner families, mother and father, both were earning a living with multiple pre-adolescent children, two to three to four to five children perhaps. And parents in these families, the mother and father, were usually practicing making their jobs a higher priority than their family. They were kind of putting all their attention in their family, kind of clueless about what to do about all these children that they had, and even what to do about each other. And there were often strong disagreements and conflict between the parents at the same time. And when it came to their children, they often did not notice or address the bad behavior effectively, the defiance, the sibling rivalry, and so on. And usually they had no set meal times, or they fed their children microwave junk food and sweets without limits, and the children were frantic and all over the place. And the house was often disastrously unclean and unkempt. And I also saw some different types of chaotic households when I was a pastor. When I delivered benevolence ministry packages to some of the families where my church was. Technically, they were supposed to come to the church to pick them up, but I did have some people ask me, please, can you bring it? And I realized why. They had no transportation, or some of the cases, real mental illness. And you could just tell when you spoke to the person. Speaking of the mothers that I spoke to, and there were some addictions sometimes, and sometimes people simply were chaotic because they grew up out of poverty, ignorance. This was a pastorate that's back in, considered to be within Appalachia. So what did the nannies do? One of the first things they often did, have a set meal time, a set time for dinner in the evening with home cooked food. Got rid of the junk food. Yay! They usually came up with written guidelines for behavior with consequences, and one child among however many there could usually read, and they could usually share what the expected behavior and consequences were. And they dealt with bad behavior and sibling rivalry primarily with timeouts. Timeouts that were appropriate for the child's age, not sitting a small child of 5 or 6 in a chair and expecting that child to be quiet for an hour, but for like 5 minutes, like 1 minute for each age. That did seem to really work, and I think that preferable to spanking. Most of the time, use words, use timeouts, and give the child a chance to win a victory over the biggest problem themselves, their passions and their anger and so on. So also, they defined household chores for the entire family, usually divided up the chores between the mother and the father and the children who could do them. And they set bedtimes for the children. Yeah, not letting the children stay up to all hours of the night. And were there problems between the parents? Yeah, these shows usually did have counseling for the parents. You usually didn't see it on camera, but would often have counseling at some point. And as I remember the shows, there's at least one case of real addiction that they dealt with. So the nanny shows, again, the reality TV, you don't know how long this lasted. It seemed to last, but again, usually brought order to the family, not an army-style discipline or regimentation. This wasn't a Marine boot camp, but the household became much more ordered. The children usually became better behaved, and they usually began to take on appropriate responsibility. So the big question that came to my mind as I was seeing these households, it still continues with me today. How many chaotic households need to be addressed but haven't? How many watch the shows but don't take the lessons to heart? How many nowadays have problems with their own purpose and their discipline because they grew up in a chaotic household and they never learned purpose and discipline at home? And yeah, there are some problems with over controlling households. I have heard about those from people who, um, when the children go to college, that if a household is over controlled, overly regimented, it may result in a strong rebellion during the college years. If the sons and daughters escape their fathers suffocating and mothers, the fathers and mothers suffocating, monitoring, and over control. They never learn to make their own decisions. They've been controlled so much they just come into strong rebellion. I think that may be a problem with some of the um, kids lapping up the new atheism over the years. So seek self control if you grew up in a chaotic household. Seek this self discipline. Maybe you need to start to clean up your own room, your own home, set your own house in order. Yeah, Jordan Peterson said that exact same thing. God actually said that to a king of Judah called Hezekiah. You can find it in the book of Isaiah. Set your own house in order. Parents also need to realize maybe you're in that situation where you were treated as a child like you were a defective adult. Like once you learned to talk and walk, you had all you need to live life from then on. But children have innate needs that take a lot of time and effort over the years to develop, and our society expects them to be able to fulfill a number of milestones as they develop, to be able to go to church, go to cooperate, go to church, go to school, cooperate with others, and addressing these with each grade level in school too. Addressing these shouldn't be an afterthought for parents that they come to the first day of school and I didn't get all the school supplies. So sometimes we find parents themselves who are immature, and that I think is the majority of the parents who are on the Nanny show. Selfish, yeah, again, immaturity and selfishness often hand in hand. So they neglected their children and their needs for development and becoming, dealing with the responsibilities that they had as children in their own lives. Parents may have lost in their own stuff. Abusive parents often have worse problems, which often addiction goes hand in hand with abuse as well. And if this is what you've come from, you may need to look at that, address the neglect and abuse in your own past, even go to a 12-step group, counseling, whatever it takes to be able to deal with the brokenness of your own past. So, as a part of this, I actually have a PDF. It's a file. It's up on my own blog site. Some simple family rules lists. This wasn't implemented in my own family, but I went back and I thought over what would I do if I had to do it again. What would I do if I had a family? I just threw this together over the years, and I think it's a good starting point and a good place to discuss. I don't think you should use it as the Bible. It's not infallible, but just look at this as advice. And again, this comes to Rule 6 from Jordan Peterson. Rule 6 in 12 Rules for Life. Setting one's own life in order first. Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. And this is from page 154, where he tells people, consider your circumstances. Start small. Have you taken full advantage of the opportunities offered to you? Are you working hard on your career or even your job? Or are you letting bitterness and resentment hold you back and drag you down? Have you made peace with your brother? Are you treating your spouse and your children with dignity and respect? Do you have habits that are destroying your health and well-being? Are you truly shouldering your responsibilities? Have you said what you need to say to your friends and family members? Are there things that you could do, you know you could do, that make the things around you better? Have you cleaned up your own life? Well, maybe you want to take, again, this is page 154. If you do have the book, you can look it up. Maybe you want to consider the book too. But consider this. Maybe you want to look at the rules list. Maybe you're an adult right now. Maybe you have no dependents. Maybe you're not married, or maybe considering marriage. Maybe I'm just saying, think about these things. Consider these things. Make plans. Don't just go with blinders on through your life without noticing the brokenness that you may have come from, the chaos that's there, and come to bring chaos forward in your life. Seek to find some way to bring some order into your life, even if you grow up in a chaotic household. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope this helps. I really do. Because I've seen families where this happens and where it hasn't happened. And I really want, if you've come through that, to be able to work through any neglect or abuse if you grew up in a chaotic household. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.